Thank you to my favorite butter, Danish Creamery, for sponsoring this episode. I'm excited to partner with Danish Creamery this year to bring you some of my favorite brunch with Babish dishes. The kinds of stuff I actually make on Sunday mornings when I want to celebrate the most important meal of the day. Today I'm making steak and eggs au poivre with a crispy potato pancake. My secret ingredient is Danish Creamery's European-style butter, which levels up every component of the dish, from cooking the eggs to building the sauce. You'll see it in action in this episode. For more info on Danish Creamery, head to the link in the description or scan the QR code. Okay. Oh, rolling. That's all 6. Okay, that means we're ready to get started. Hey there, folks. Welcome back to another Babish cook-along. This is my new show where I prepare a dish front to back in real time. This is a show to put on in the background or while you fall asleep, or my favorite, to cook right along with me. We've put out 2 episodes of this show thus far. I've been loving reading the comments. I so appreciate everybody who's watched and commented and liked and all that stuff. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, because I really enjoy making this show and I want to keep doing it. Today we're making steak and eggs, but I wanted to put a little bit of a twist on it. It's the most basic cooking show guy thing to say. We're gonna make steak and eggs, but I'm gonna put a little twist on it. Like, yeah, no dip. Try not to swear on this show. So I have been writing some breakfast recipes for a new cookbook. You might guess what it's called, Breakfast with Babish. And I've had some ideas that I really like to put little spins, or little worlds colliding of different dishes. So for steak and eggs, I was thinking, I love steak au poivre. And the au poivre sauce is just a brandy cream sauce, nice and rich and peppery, like pronouncedly peppery. And I feel like it would go well with eggs. If eggs go well with hollandaise, why wouldn't they go well with au poivre? And then I had the idea to put the whole thing on a veritable plate of potatoes. That is a pomme d'arfan. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, because it's like a surname, it's not a word. But it's a classic French preparation of it's almost like a latke. It's just a big potato pancake, and I want to take some steps to try to get it as unbelievably crispy as possible. So we're gonna try some stuff out today. As per usual, every time I cook anything, I don't practice it beforehand. I really should. I'm gonna try some stuff, might work, might not. Well, I've sketched it out in my journal. So let's take a look at the anatomy of today's dish. As you can see, I drew perfect filet mignon. That's obviously filet mignon. I mean, I don't have to even say it, right? Because it's so clear that that's filet mignon. I can't draw steak, I guess. So that's supposed to be slices of filet mignon. That's the peppercorn gravy going over top. We got 2 fried eggs. And then I'm going to put a scallion gremolata. I want some like bright, punchy flavors, herby, acidic, spicy, all the things that are sort of missing from this dish, and they're going to come through in the gremolata, I hope. And then we have this big crispy potato pomme d'arfan on the bottom. I can't remember that word for some reason. It doesn't make sense in my brain. I always want to say dauphine, like that sounds French. D'arfan? That doesn't sound like it. So it's going to be a pretty simple, I mean, it's not that simple, but it should come together relatively quickly, because all we have to do is prep the potatoes, dry brine our steak, and then once we have those 2 things done, we're pretty much off to the races. We got to build our peppercorn sauce, but as always, one thing at a time. As for gear, I'm going to try to be a little bit more comprehensive with going through what we need when we start. So if you are cooking along at home, you can grab the stuff and join me. As for gear, basic cookware, I've got 3 pans. You could do this with 2. I'm probably going to do it with 2 just to show you that you can. A non-stick and a stainless steel saute pan. Both are 10 inchers. I'm trying to, this can be any size really. I'm only doing 1 steak, so I'm going with a relatively small one. This, you want to make sure it's the size of your intended plate. Not the same size, but smaller than, I guess, because we want a potato, this is going to be for the potato pancake, and we want a potato pancake that is going to act as the base for our entire dish. We need a clean dish towel with just a couple rim baking sheets. They're gonna come in handy. A rim baking sheet with a rack set inside, which I'm gonna put straight in the oven, because this rim baking sheet is for doing two things: catching steak and catching potatoes. That'll make more sense later on. For now, I'm gonna preheat the oven to like 350. Nothing too crazy. What I said before, basically we're gonna start both the potatoes and the steak in the pan, in their pans, and then they're gonna finish cooking in the oven, because we have a pretty thick potato pancake and we have a very thick steak, as you can see. Here's today's steak. I'm going with filet mignon because steak à poivre is a very, very rich dish. We're talking about, you know, tons of butter and cream, and there's also these runny eggs there, and we don't need much fat in terms of steak. So if you don't do filet mignon, just do something relatively lean. But even if you don't, whatever, it's gonna be too fatty. Obviously, you know, that could be an issue for some, but this is my tea. My tea for my poor throat. Now, first thing we got to do is dry brine our steak. This is, you know, I talk about this all the time. This is general best practice with virtually any meat. These gloves are a little too small. From a dry brine. Dry brine is just, you know, relatively generously coating it in kosher salt, sometimes pepper. Jeez. God, those are a little too small. Or my hands grew. You never know which. So we're gonna dry brine this and let it sit at room temperature for at least 45 minutes, enough time for the moisture to be drawn to the surface of the steak and then reabsorbed. That's gonna help the steak retain moisture. It's gonna give us a better crust. This is also a good time to talk about this steak. You might notice looks a little bit funny. You can see it's tied. I got it from the butcher. It was tied up. And you can see there's a channel running through here. And if you pull it apart, the meat separates very easily. And that's because this is a tied filet mignon. Beef tenderloin is not a perfect tube. It is a tube for one part, and then both ends kind of taper, but one end really tapers off into a tail. I think they even call it the tail. So to make more viable steaks, butchers will wrap the thin part of the tail, let's say that's it, wrap it like that. Oh, that was actually a pretty good demonstration, but yeah, I can't believe that worked. Basically, they take the thinner part and fold it over the thicker part to make a more uniform steak. They wrap it up. This way you can get more steaks out of every loin. But we are gonna end up slicing this thing, so it's not gonna make too much of a difference, hopefully. Ah, tea. Okay. So, oh no, we have to do the thing that I was saying. So, I'm going to generously, now I'm all mixed up, but generally not a good idea to, you know, dump raw meat hands into salt. But if you did at home just for you, it's not the end of the world, because salt is anti-microbial, so can't nothing live in there. There we are. Our steak has been pretty generously salted on all sides. Depending on what kind of steak you make, you might want to adjust your salt content. I went pretty heavy because this is a thick steak. It's about, you know, 1.5 inches, 1 3/4. And there's a lot of center here that is not going to get any seasoning. If you have a thinner steak, don't do as much salt because you might end up over salting. So I'm going to put this aside to hang out while we do everything else. Other gear. I didn't go through all the gear. I'll get the hang of this one day. Other gear we want to get is a mortar and pestle. If you don't have one of these, there are plenty of other options. I'll go through those when we hit the peppercorn stage of things. Always good practice to have our garbage bowl bench scraper. Easiest cleanup in the world. Set that aside, keep it handy. Grab our phone, put it on Do Not Disturb. Best feeling in the world. Love it. Because for the next, I don't know, guess an hour and a half, all we're doing is cooking. I want to try to be as intentional and as, not focused, but as engaged with the process as I can be. It's very nice to unplug and just focus on cooking for a little while. I encourage you to do the same if you're able. I'll try to stop slurping my tea like that. That's off-putting. First thing we should probably do is prep our potatoes. This could be done ahead of time. You could do this a few hours before. Probably gonna do one potato. I'll do two just to be safe. I was debating whether to use russets or Yukon Golds for this application. Generally speaking, russets are better for crispier potatoes, while Yukon Golds are better for creamier potatoes. And I want these to be crazy crispy. So even though it's a little trickier to work with russets, that's what I'm gonna do. This potato is old. I can feel it and see it. So we're gonna see if this guy works out. I'll just peel right on the table, why not? Oh yeah, it looks fine. Yeah, looks fine, smells fine, probably is fine. Humanity's gotten by for a long time on those bases. I'm gonna be doing a really fussy method here. I'll show you in a sec. But there's a lot of ways you can do this without any special gear. But here's how I'm gonna do it. So, I want my potato to be julienned very, very finely. Julienne is just, very, very thin matchsticks, perfectly square. And you really could very easily, very quickly, just shred the potatoes on the large holes of a box grater. That's gonna give you just fine results. But by doing this julienne directly into water, by the way, this is rinsing off excess starch and preventing the potatoes from oxidizing, turning brown. You can see, look how tiny and just kind of perfect. You can see that it's got like perfectly squared off edges. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just gonna give me little strips that are really uniform and really squared off. And that is going to just give me a slightly more professional looking presentation. I'm mostly doing it because I'm on camera right now, not because, you need to do it. But this is called a julienne peeler, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It juliennes things the same way that you peel them. And this potato is starting to look a little funky toward the center, so I might kind of try to go around that. I love this thing. I love this thing. This was worth $5 or whatever it cost, probably around that. If it was OXO, more like 12. Boy, we should make one of these. Babish products should make this. I'm trying to see how much, if this is going to be enough potato on its own. Just this guy. Probably not. I think I'm going to have to do the other potato as well. We'll see. It doesn't have to be particularly thick. Like with latkes, you generally want, some heft to it because the outside's going to be crispy, the inside's going to be creamy. And I just want this to be fully crisp throughout. I want its only attribute to be crisp. If it were a video game and you were dialing its different stats in, like on Skyrim or whatever, the only attribute I'd want it to have is crisp. Or B is, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to relate to you with video games. It's a mistake. That's enough of that nonsense. Let's see if that's enough potato. I think that might be enough. I don't want to be caught potato-handed though. With not enough potato. Yeah, no, I don't think it's enough. I hate to waste some of this potato, but yeah, you don't want to let potatoes sit in water for many hours. I think you can do it for up to like 4 or something. And I'm going for really long strands here because I want this to be like, all these strands to be sort of interwoven and for you to really clearly see these strings of potato. Like, I think it's just gonna look really cool. That's probably almost enough. Let me get a little bit more. And again, if this is your first time watching this show is largely about the act of cooking and the associated noises. So sometimes I'm going to shut my mouth and I'm just going to cook. I can probably stop explaining that, but this will be the last time. So there we go. We have our potatoes peeled. I'm going to let them chill in there for just a sec while I clean up. They're absolutely fine for a little while. And as I mentioned, peeling the potatoes directly into water like this, or shredding them, or whatever you're doing, ensures that you're rinsing off excess starch. And that starch is what causes the potatoes to oxidize. So these are not going to oxidize as long as they're kept in the water, and once they are taken out of the water, they're not going to oxidize as quickly. There's nothing poisonous or wrong with oxidization. It's just ugly, it's just brown. And you know, when you cut open a potato pancake, you don't want to see brown on the inside. You know, imagine cracking open a hash brown and it's brown on the inside. It's not going to hurt you, but it's also not terribly appetizing either. So I'm only massaging these like this, not because it feels good, because it does, but also because that julienne peeler, a lot of these strands are still stuck together like this guy. I'm just trying to get them all separate. Yeah, they're really nice and thin. That's perfect. Basically a proper classic pomme d'arfan. Classic pomme d'arfan is just potatoes and fat, just potatoes and butter. This is most certainly going to be potatoes and butter, but I'm also going to kind of treat it a little bit like a latke. So what I want to do is omit the egg white, because egg whites are mostly water, and egg yolk, it's very, very small, so it's going to bring some fat, but mostly flavor. It'll just be nice. Some butter and some potato flour in lieu of normal flour, because it's flour, but it's made from potatoes. So why? That just makes sense to me. I hope it works, but we'll see. All right, we got our potatoes peeled and prepped. That's fantastic. We're also, you can see how cloudy this water's gotten here. You can see, like, you can barely see through it. That's all the starch. Now, when I pull the potatoes out, I'm gonna get them super dry as I possibly can. Then I'm gonna let this water settle. All the starch is gonna settle on the bottom. And then I'm gonna try to pour off as much as I can, and then use that starch. The starch does help things get crispy. It's why russets end up crispier than Yukons, because they have more starch. At least that's what I understand. So by reserving that starch and putting it back into the potato mixture, hopefully should help get us crisper. It is a tip that I've heard many times for getting crispier latkes, so it surely will apply here. I'm gonna put these down here, where they're out of the way. And next up, how about we do our gremolata? That's what we'll do. So this is gonna not be a traditional gremolata. It's gonna be a little twist on it. I'm going to use scallions in lieu of shallots or onions, what you might normally use. And I'm gonna char the scallions, because that's gonna bring some nice smoke flavor. And you know, if we're eating steak that hasn't been charred on a grill, it might, you know, bring some of those flavors, just sort of emulate them a little bit, and help our diners, in this case being me, suspend disbelief. So, got the scallions here. This is this is a half dozen scallions, 6, 7 scallions. I'm just gonna chop off the roots. Chop. And then I'm just gonna char these over an open flame on my stovetop, the same way I would a poblano pepper. And I'm only gonna do pretty much there onward, right there, because all this is hollow. So if I char these, then they just become pure carbon. There's no, you know, if you char these ends, they're not hollow, they have onion inside, so you end up with a charred exterior and some nice cooked onion interior. If you char these, you're just adding ash, basically. So let's crank on the flame. I've never done this before, so I don't know how well it's going to work. I wonder if I should just hold them over. That seems tenable. Yeah, that doesn't seem like a good idea now that I did it. I need a grate. Can I just use a grate? I'm sure I can. That's an interesting question. Let's find out. Rover sometimes loses me when I go down below stuff, so I had to be careful there. I don't know if this is kosher what I'm doing. So, I don't know. Maybe don't do this at home. Or maybe I'm just saying that because I have to. I don't know. There we go. Let's put that down there. Let these guys get some direct heat, some color. That's all I want. It's just a little bit of blackening on the outside. Okay, you know what? Nope, that's a bad idea. Nope, see, that's a bad idea. Okay, don't do that. That's how I learned not to do things. Basically, I was seeing the grate turn red. It was probably going to melt very shortly. I think this is a cheap one, so let's quench that in some water. And I'm just going to try to very cautiously hold these over the flame for a couple minutes. My hand is out of the flame, happily, and just give them a little bit of color. Normally I would, take these out on the grill, but it's absolutely disgusting outside in New York City today, so I will not be doing that. Instead, I'll just be grabbing a little bit of charred flavor right here in the comfort of my home studio kitchen. And I'm really just letting those get down in there, catch some heat. I could even just do them one at a time a little bit. Like this guy didn't get enough attention, so let's just throw him directly. Oh, it smells good. That smells good. Yeah, you guys just saw my my process in real time. This probably isn't a good idea. We'll see what happens. Oh, yep, wasn't a good idea. That's how it normally goes when you're not watching. And that's what you're going to get on this show. Can't believe I'm not burning my fingers right now, but I'm a lucky guy. Yeah. Ooh, I can feel the liquid bubbling inside the tube. That's cool. Yeah, just a hint of color. The recipe for today's episode, which will be written after I've made my mistakes and figured out what to do correctly. The recipe for today's episode is on babi.sh, that's babi.sh. It's also in the video description, but on the website for about less than $1 a month, it's $10 a year, you can access all of the BCU recipes, get gear lists, tips and tricks. There's a really great, robust community of people sharing their recreations. I jump in there and comment. It's a really lovely place, so please go check it out. But of course, the recipe is also in the video description. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call that done. Yeah, got some nice color on there. Not bad. Okay, put those aside. I'm gonna grab some parsley here. I'm probably gonna make a lot more than I need just because it's just the nature of the beast. Rover, stay on me. You got me? Yeah. Rover and I got each other figured out. So I'm not gonna like pull, the individual leaves off and discard all the stems. I'm gonna get to like that point where you just got some stems in there. Because in a gremolata, it's fine. It's meant to be a really bracing, powerful flavor. So, and the stems are, just a little bit, I think they're a little bit more potent than the leaves. And it's all getting chopped up anyway, so no need to be too fastidious. I found the word that I was looking for. So I'm gonna use a food processor. You could absolutely do this by hand in a mortar and pestle. If you do it by hand, you basically just wanna chop everything I'm putting in here as fine as you possibly can. And and then sort of whisk it with oil and vinegar like you're making a salad dressing, pretty much. So I'm just gonna give us a rough chop just so the food processor has a little less work to do. I'm not doing that out of pity for the food processor, though I do pity it. I'm doing that because if I didn't chop it just then, all those parsley leaves would be up to here now, and it would take more time and effort to get all the parsley down into the bottom of the bowl where the blades are, which means that we're gonna have really uneven pieces. We're gonna have some that were sitting up top that barely got chopped, and we're gonna have some on the bottom that have been absolutely obliterated into a paste. So we're gonna have uneven texture and less control over how much our stuff is getting broken down. All right, so we got our charred scallions here. Likewise, we'll help her chop. I'm just gonna add all those. There we go. Then I'm also going to add a little garlic. It's gonna be a pretty standard ooh, that doesn't feel right. Oh, nope, that doesn't feel good or look good. It's gonna be a pretty standard chimichurri recipe. About the only thing I'm doing differently is omitting the onion and replacing it with charred scallion. Not much else different. Let's do the crush trick, Andy. We're on camera. There we go. Just chop the base off your garlic clove. Give it a little squish. It'll jump out of its skin. Also, you can see that this garlic has begun to germinate. This little green stem is growing in the middle. I'm sure you've seen that in a lot of your garlic. And basically that's just totally edible, but can be a little bitter. So if you have older garlic that's starting to germinate like that, I hope I'm using the correct phrase right now, probably not. Just chop it in half, just yank it out. Don't have to do it at all. It's just all these little choices that you can make end up having compounding effects on your final product. That's why we do the bench scraper. Got 2 cloves of garlic, once again, rough chop before, or no, it's 1 clove of garlic, sorry. Rough chop, add to the food processor. And I'm gonna add a little bit of crushed red chili flake, maybe half teaspoon's worth-ish. There's a half teaspoon. There we go. And a little bit of red wine vinegar, like probably a tablespoon-ish, maybe a little less than that, like 2 teaspoons worth of red wine vinegar, and then a good drizzle of extra virgin olive oil, and some salt and pepper, of course. We probably don't need pepper, given the nature of this dish, but whatever, let's layer flavors, why not? There we go. Let's see how this baby blitzes. And you can obviously do this in a full-size food processor, probably be easier, but I have this little attachment, so let's see what happens. It's almost emulsifying into a dressing, which I don't really want, but it's getting there. This is gonna be not drizzleable, but like sprinkleable. It's gonna be like a hand-chopped pesto almost, but with less liquid. Let's give it a little scrape. I need a little spat for that. You still got me? Yeah. I'm gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl, get all those bigger pieces in contact with the blades. I probably should have left the vinegar out because it's emulsifying together with the oil and it's creating this like dressing effect, which I don't really want, but I might not have a choice. Okay, that's looking nice. Let's give it a little taste, see where it's at. Still nice and chunky and sort of leafy. I want that because I don't want it to be like a sauce that's going to, you know, sog out the potato. Oh, I love that. Ooh, that was spicy. Ooh, it's spicy. Not that spicy, it's just the, you know, fresh scallions, fresh garlic, raw. It really punches you. But that's what we need. That's exactly what I want. Now I just need a bowl to put this in. That'll be fine. And if this were, you know, basil, I would tell you to hold off because basil oxidizes when you chop it up, but parsley does not. Neither do scallions. So this is not going to turn brown, at least not anytime soon. Okay, good enough. All right, cool. So that's our gremolata, which that should make for a very nice base for our steak and eggs. But below even that base is another base still, that made of potatoes. Just gonna clean up a little bit. We just put a paper towel roll here after, you know, working in the studio for almost 5 years. Innovation takes time. Yeah, now what we can do is put together our potato darfin. Whew. Finally, it's stuck. That's the first time it's stuck. We can start taking care of that, putting that together. I really want that steak to have more time because you can see what's happening here. Since we salted it, look at this. Since we salted it, it has become positively wet. And that's because the salt has drawn out moisture from inside the meat. And that needs to be reabsorbed before it's properly dry brined, which usually takes about 45 minutes. So I want us to have a little bit more time here. You know what we could do is we could build the peppercorn cream sauce, because with steak à poivre, you're searing a peppercorn crusted steak. The meat is not making much contact at all with the bottom of the pan, so no fond is forming. All you end up with is some burnt pepper. So even if you do repurpose the pan that you're using, you have to wipe it out. You have to dump everything out because it's just burnt fat and burnt pepper. You don't want that ending up in your sauce. What you want is freshly toasted, freshly cracked pepper. So that's what we got this guy for, mortar and pestle. There are a number of ways that you could do this though. I like mortar and pestle just because, well, it's kind of romantic and beautiful. I have these lovely rainbow peppercorns that's just gonna look nice and add, you know, a variety of flavor. I need enough to both coat my steaks and build the sauce. So I'm gonna do a fair amount. That's probably about 2 tablespoons to 1/4 cup, roughly. 3 tablespoons, how about that? And just cracking them. Just want to crack them. Not trying to break this down. Oh, wow, that smells good. And it's making my nose run. There we go. That is looking like the texture that I want. Beautiful. I'll show you on the close-up. Okay. So, there's what we got. Basically, every peppercorn has been at least cracked in half, if not processed down a little further, but we want really big honking chunks of peppercorn. The bigger the better, because if they're small, they're gonna burn, which is why we're gonna now sieve this. I know a lot of people, you know, still use pre-ground pepper, but I'm telling you, it is absolutely worth it to spring. Yeah, spring for a good peppercorn grinder and some fresh whole peppercorns. I don't think you have to get the fanciest peppercorns in the world. So, we're sieving this because, there we go. We're sieving it because all those little tiny bits of particulate are gonna burn if we let them sit on the outside of a ripping hot steak in a ripping hot pan. So after we sieve it, we're left with only this stuff. Big old chunks. Now again, you could do this a number of ways without a mortar and pestle. If you have a pepper grinder, you could of course set it to a very, very, very coarse grind. You might not even need to sift it. I still would, just to be safe, but so just set your pepper grinder to its very coarsest setting. You could do it in a food processor, a blender, and you know, just try to process it minimally until it's big old chunks like that. You could do it, you know, back in the episode, I did an Archer episode on steak à poivre, and I think I took a fry pan, I put the peppercorns in the fry pan, then I took a saucepan on top of that, and I just crushed them with that. Wasn't the most efficient method, but something like that you could probably make work. This is still perfectly good pepper for seasoning other stuff, so I'm gonna hang on to that. You need enough left over to put into your cream sauce. There we go. All right, so now let's make our potatoes. Let's get them going. There we go. I'm actually gonna turn the oven up to 375 because I do want to finish crisping these in the oven and might as well have some righteous heat. I might even turn on convection. It's gonna help get better browning going. So I have this, whoa, just knocked the bracelet off my wrist and knocked the meditation beads off my wrist and directly onto the clean dish towel, because the next thing we're gonna do is get all the excess water out of and off of these potatoes. And to do that, we really need to wring the hell out of them. Might have made these too long. Feels like I made these too long. Only one way to find out. Here we are. Any cheaters out of there? All right, so now we really gotta wring the hell out of this. The way I like to do that is basically bunch up the clean towel into a bunch like that, and then hold it over the bowl and just twist. Twist with all your might. Twist like you gotta, your life depends on it. I know I'm turning into a pirate, but it feels appropriate. I'll put this over here so you can see all that hot squeezing action. And the more moisture you get out of here, the crispier your potatoes are gonna be. So, very important to get them dry. All right, I don't even know if I'm gonna use this actually. We'll see. But I'm gonna let it sit out of the way over by the bug racket. And then I'm gonna get another kitchen towel here. It's because I wanna pat these even drier. There we go. Hopefully these are, see, I always worry about the ones in the center not getting squeezed hard enough. Guess we'll see. Spread these out. And really just press them. Make sure that we got all that excess water out of there. And those look just about right. They feel relatively dry. So now we can either try my theorem of mixing them with a binder of some kind, or we can just go full French. Just go for it. I think I want to mix them with a little bit of binder. I think I want to try it. So that's what I'm going to do. I need an egg. I need more eggs for later too. Might as well get these out. Maybe I'll leave the egg white in there. I'm just figuring this out as I go along. Now, nice dry, de-starched potatoes. Seems like enough. I don't want to overdo it. Luckily, we have the luxury of trying it out. Let's see how this fills the pan. Not enough. Nope, we're doing all of them. We're doing all of them. So that looks like the right amount, but I want this to be like a nest that's holding all of our steak and eggs and all that good stuff. So what I'm going to do is get those in there. And then I'm going to add a few things to it. First off, some butter, some Danish creamery butter. Probably, why don't we do a solid 4 tablespoons worth. Throw those in there. Get this butter melting. Just going to melt it. I don't want it hot or anything, especially because I'm putting an egg in there. In fact, I'm going to wait to put the egg in there until I add the butter, because if the butter's a little warm, potatoes will cool it off. In the meanwhile, I have some potato flour here. I also want to add some flavors. What we got here? We got garlic, we got paprika, we got onion. So normally when I'm making latkes, I'm grating onion into the potato mixture right along with the potatoes, just grating it in. That's a huge source of moisture though. And moisture, when we're trying to get something really brown and crispy, is the enemy. So I'm going to use just a little bit, just to add some character. Nothing crazy. That was like a 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, like a 1/4 teaspoon each onion powder, garlic powder. I also thought some nice hot paprika would be nice. I mean, I said nice twice. It's got to be nice, right? This is going to give a little bit of spice, some really nice color. That's, I don't know, let's do a 1/2 teaspoon's worth. I want it to be, oh, no, 1/4 teaspoon's worth. I don't know how spicy this is. Just to bring some personality to the background of the potato. It's not, you know, it's not like these are garlicky potatoes. These are lightly seasoned potatoes. Speaking of which, don't forget some salt. Do not forget some salt. Unless you're using salted butter, in which case, you know, hold off for a moment. I'm going to salt these relatively heavily, as about a teaspoon's worth of kosher salt. Now we got our 1/4 cup of melted butter that I'm just going to drizzle on there. And let me mix this up just to, no, the butter's not hot, so we can just drop this guy in. I'm going to beat this first. You want to beat the egg first, and I'll tell you why. Because, yeah, that looked pretty cool. You want to beat the egg first with a little pinch of kosher salt in it. This helps denature the proteins in the egg. Gives you a smoother slurry. If you just dump the egg in there and mix it up with the potatoes, you're gonna have streaks of white streaks of yolk. Not things we're looking to do. Trying to get that into a nice smooth slurry. There we go. And I don't have the patience or time to wait for that potato starch, so that is a hot tip, but we're gonna go ahead and not do it. Because I don't feel like it. And as for this potato flour, I'm gonna sprinkle over about 2 tablespoons worth and adjust as necessary. Yeah, that's about 2 tablespoons worth. Beaten egg. Let's throw on a glove that's a little bit too small and mix it up. There we go. Good thing about the spices is that they're going to indicate to us how well mixed our potato mixture is, because if there's patches of red, means that they're not well mixed enough. The spices haven't been evenly distributed yet. This looks a little wet to me, so I'm going to throw some more potato flour in there. Let's make it 3 tablespoons. just eyeballing stuff. The recipe in the video description and on the website will be more finalized and less, off the cuff than this, but I like experimenting. I like playing around. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. It's almost got like a batter on it. I'm very curious to see how this is going to come out. All right. I would say taste it for seasoning, but it's raw potato, so don't do that. And before we get cooking, I just want to do one more piece of mise, and that is to chop up a little shallot for our peppercorn sauce. Just because once we get cooking, we're not going to want to have to pause to chop up a shallot. So this is going to be the first thing when we start building the peppercorn cream sauce. This is going to be the first thing that goes in. Saute this, pretty standard pan sauce. Would be enough, I'm not making much. This knife needs to be sharpened. There we go. You don't have to worry about it being too chunky. Sauce is already going to be chunky because of all the peppercorns, so not going to be that bad if that ends up being the case. Whatever's still got me. Things are going pretty smooth for something that I'm utterly making up as I go along here. We'll see if it stays that way. I'm so curious to see how this is going to work out. Look at what happened with these potatoes. They're covered in a paste, and that paste could spell disaster. It could spell ultra crispiness. There's only one way to find out, and that is to cook it. So that's what I'm going to do. If you're doing palm darfin, you don't need that much fat in the pan. You're just tossing the potatoes with butter. But with this, because it's got that paste on it, it's almost like a batter. I want it to be in fat. I want it to be like in a, not a pool, but yeah, a fair amount of fat. So that way it's getting crisped up. So I'm gonna use some butter. I still need 3 more tablespoons for, for the pan sauce. So let's use 2 tablespoons of butter and about the same amount in olive oil. There we go. It looks like 2 fried eggs already. How about that? And let's get started, shall we? So I'm gonna get this foaming up pretty nice and good. This doesn't need to cook very fast, but you know, if you cook it too slow, it could end up soggy. Again, this is all theoretical. I don't know how this is actually gonna work. What I am gonna do is glove up, because I'm gonna need to press those potatoes down in there. And you know, normally I don't use gloves all the time when I'm cooking for myself, but when you're making a show, it's easier. That way I don't have to keep washing my hands, you know? Let's get it nice and foamy. Butter's gonna foam, not the oil, obviously. And this is a good application for Danish creamery butter because it is European style butter, which means it has a higher fat content, lower moisture content. And as I was saying, moisture is the enemy. Well, water specifically. And there's less water in this butter than there is in the average American butter. I'm gonna swirl it around a little bit just to coat the sides of the pan, make sure everybody gets even loving. I wanna get this, you know, getting there. So yeah, having a lower moisture content is going to translate to less moisture that has to cook off before the Maillard reaction can occur. So it's going to mean that we're going to get better browning. All right, here goes nothing. How is there so much less than there was before? All right, let's really press it out there. I don't understand how this is so much smaller than it was earlier. But what I'm doing right now is trying to get it into a relatively flat, even layer. Might be easier to do with a spat. Want to get it well condensed too. Don't want to see too much daylight through those potatoes, so that's going to mean that it could fall apart, which I don't want it to do. I'm also going to turn this pan. My burners are notoriously uneven, and we will end up with hot spots if I leave things in the same place for too long. Okay, that's smelling pretty nice. Ooh. All right, it's staying together in a sort of unit. That's good. And there's a lot of fat, sure, but it's going to make flipping it difficult. Yeah, maybe don't use as much fat in the pan as I did. Maybe practice dishes before you go on a cooking show. Tell people how to make them. Because yeah, flipping this is going to be tricky because there's so much fat in there. I'm hoping it soaks up some more of that fat, because turning it out, it's just going to basically make all the fat splatter. But I'm really curious to see how this starch mixture works and if it performs as expected, as intended. So what I'm waiting for here is for the edges to turn nice and brown. And that's when I'm going to try to flip it out. It's staying together. I don't know. It's going to be buttery. It's going to be a buttery potato. I'll tell you that much. Now, a precaution I'm going to have to take, because there's so much fat in there, too much fat, is when I flip it out onto the plate, it's going to splatter. I have to be very careful not to damage my weak human anatomy. What, there's a lot of moisture in there. Let's see how the bottom's looking. I'm going to take a peek. How are we looking under here? Ooh, that's looking nice. There's only one way to find out. I could try and flip it. I think I'm going to try and flip it. This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. I'm covering my arms because there's probably going to be some significant spatter. I want to make sure that it's as cooked as possible. It's just sliding around so beautifully. I just want to flip it. Yeah, this is going to spatter like crazy. So the written recipe should reflect a correct amount of fat. I would probably use half the amount of fat that I did, or just butter. Just use 2 tablespoons of butter, no olive oil. Skip the olive oil. I forgot that I had added 3 tablespoons to the potatoes. That's probably why. But they're like deep frying, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, my stove is really uneven. Yours probably is too. Pans are uneven. Pans have hot spots, so I'm swirling it around. I'm trying to get it to moving around in the pan. I'm rotating the pan, doing whatever I can to ensure as even a cook as possible. It sounds nice and crisp under there. Let's take another peek. I need a thinner spat to peek. I need a peeking spat. Wow, that looks freaking great. Okay, maybe I'm a genius. Okay, ready? This is a bad idea. Only one way to find out. Oh my God, I did it. Oh my God. Oh my God. That got hairy. Okay. So now what we're going to do is very calmly take this and put it in the oven. We're going to put that in the oven to finish cooking through. Might be a little greasy, but we'll see what happens. Okay. That means it's steak time. Grab your 10-gallon bucket of corn oil. There we go. And I'm going to towel off the steak a little bit because it has definitely reabsorbed some of our juices. So you can see the top is totally dry because it's reabsorbed all that liquid. The bottom's pretty wet, so but don't worry, it's done some reabsorption too. It's just not bragging about it. And now I'm going to really liberally coat it, press down into the steak with peppercorns, thusly. And you can see there's not going to be one, I'm going to sear the sides of the steak a little bit, but for the most part, the steak's not making contact with the pan. It's just peppercorns. So we're going to sear it. We're not going to, sear it like super crazy, just because we don't want to burn the hell out of the pepper. But we are just going to sear it. There we go. Really well coated in pepper. Got some edges I missed here anyway. We got plenty left over for our sauce. Whoop. Pan's smoking hot. Whoa, there's blue pepper everywhere. Press this guy down in. Make sure the fat making contact. Give them a toast. Going to join our potato pancake to finish off in the oven right now, which I have set right now to 375 degrees Fahrenheit with convection. You could do 400 without. Those are going to finish off in there. In the meantime, all we have to do is make our cream sauce and fry our eggs. Not too shabby. Just going to dump this hot oil burnt pepper into a refuse bowl. This is actually the potato starch that I ended up not using. There we go. And the sauce is really quite easy. It comes together very quickly. There we go. So, anybody rolling still? I haven't been rolling audio. Okay, this is the point of the episode when things are in the oven, there's smoke in the air. I've got cameras overheating where I start to feel a little overwhelmed. So I've cracked the window, got some birds chirping, and I'm just going to take a quick breath. I encourage you to join me whether you're feeling overwhelmed or not. It's always nice to take a little mindful moment, and I'm just going to recenter. Okay, rolling. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna make our peppercorn cream sauce. I'm gonna start by hitting the pan with, I know it looks like 2 tablespoons. It's about a tablespoon of butter. We're just gonna melt this, let it get foamy. Here's the order of operations. We're going to melt this, let it get foamy. We're gonna sweat the shallot in it, our little half chopped shallot, just for 1 to 3 minutes until it turns translucent and get a little color. Not too much, we don't want it to turn brown or anything. Let's drop that in. Get off of my hand. There we go. And then We're going to toast our peppercorns in there. And I think I need a few more, so while that's sauteing, I'm going to fecklessly try to crack some more. Swirl, swirl, swirl. Don't want too much browning there. Or any at all, really. That shouldn't be there, but don't worry about it. Okay. Once we got some nice color, some nice softness to our shallots, I'm going to add our peppercorns. That was probably 2 tablespoons worth. We're just going to toast those for about 30 seconds. Don't want to overdo it, don't want to burn these guys, just want them to get a little bit of dry pan loving before we take things to the next level. And by next level, I mean fire. Because a poivre is a brandy cream sauce. And brandy, very specifically, is set aflame. And I'm going to try to do that as safely and as level-headedly as possible by getting my pan up to a good sizzle, making sure there's plenty of heat in there. Then, this is the safe way to do it, kill the flame entirely, add the brandy, a little bit more, and set it alight. Cool. And now we can turn the flame back on. Now that the alcohol has burned off, there it goes. And immediately hit it with, if you use homemade or store-bought beef stock, you want to take 2 cups and reduce it down to 1 cup. But I have 1 cup of this store-bought demi glace that is effectively the same thing. It's a concentrated beef broth. Melt that in there. And we're going to cook this down. We're going to add cream to it a little bit later on. Once it's reduced by about half, we're going to reduce that. And then we're going to mount it with butter once we've reached the consistency that we like. Don't season with salt or anything. I was about to say season with salt or pepper. You don't need any pepper here. Don't season with salt until you've reached the reduction and the consistency that you want, because if you reduce it further, it's going to get too salty. Simple physics or something. So let's let that reduce for a few minutes. I'm going to check on my steak. Such as these. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. All right, steak's not quite there yet. Probably needs a few more minutes. I'm going to pull it around 120. So, already looking and smelling very good. I sure wish you could smell this. If you're making it at home, it's like smell-o-vision. It's like the future, because you're smelling exactly. See what we're doing here? This is the future. Now, a lot of people just put a little tiny bit of beef broth in there and then cook it down to nothing, and then add cream, and then you end up with a very pale sauce. And I like a nice tan sauce. I want it to be, you know, not quite this, but not quite that either. Like, I want it right in between. Just because I think a really pale sauce on a steak looks a little unappetizing, to me at least. So I want it to be a nice tawny brown. Is that the correct use of that word, tawny? All right, that's reduced by about half. So now I'm going to add maybe a 1/4 cup to 1/3 of a cup of heavy cream. Oh, it's like latte art. How about that? Turn down the heat a little. Really going to be going by color here because it's going to darken as I reduce it, so I want it a little lighter than where I ultimately want it. Yeah, so that's where I want it to end up pretty much. So I'm going to hit it with a little more, and we're going to cook that down for another couple minutes until it reaches the state of nappe, which is not a state. It's not one of the 50 states. Nappe is a French term referring to a liquid that when you're cooking it, I think that it's not a great measurement because, I'll show you why. Nappe means that you can coat the back of a spoon like this, drag your finger and leave a clean trail. This is technically at nappe, but it's way too thin. You don't want to pour that on your steak. That's still liquid. So nappe isn't quite the right consistency that we're looking for. I want this to get down to the thickness of paint. Yeah, sauce. You know, it's a sauce. We want it to drape over the meat, not pour over it, not just dribble off it. We want it to not be so thick that we're like scooping it on there, but not so thin that it's just like we're pouring milk on a steak. Ugh. We don't want that. So we want a consistency that is just going to drape. And I think we're nearly there because as it cools, it's going to get thicker. So you want to pull back a little shy of where you ultimately want to end up. Same thing with the color. And we're also going to mount it with butter, which is going to thicken it further. So that is looking pretty righteous to me. You know that it's getting to the right consistency when the bubble structure starts to change. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Just like it's like there's smaller bubbles that can't quite break the surface. You know? You can see it when you look at it. You can see that the bubbles they're just bubbling differently than before. And the thicker a liquid gets, the more that happens. So just be patient, get it down to the right consistency. We got time. Steak ain't done yet. The potatoes can hang out in there for probably a while. Really, the worst thing that can happen with them is they burn. So take them out if they're starting to get too dark or anything, but they're only going to get more crispy up till that point. So let them go. If they start to burn, take them out, let them sit at room temperature and warm them back up when it comes time to serve. I'm going to kill the heat. And as soon as the bubbling subsides, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons, standing by for bubbling to subside. We don't want it to be bubbling because to mount butter into a sauce is to emulsify it in. And if we add it too hot, the butter can break, where it'll just end up being an oily layer on top of the sauce, which is fixable, but might as well not deal with it in the first place. So, looks like we got no more bubbles. That means that we can add our butter. Lick our fingers. And just whisk it in, keep it moving. There we go. God, this smells incredible. I don't know if it's the multiple, the rainbow peppercorn mix, but like there's so many flavors and smells going on here. Let's see what this tastes like. It's gonna need salt, so I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of preemptive. Let's see what that's like. That's the consistency we want. See that? There's still like, it's very thoroughly coating the back of the spoon. It's not just nappe, it's extra nappe. Oh, God, that's good. Oh, wow. That's gonna be fantastic on steak. Speaking of which, I should probably get that thing out of the oven. Let's go. Let me take this opportunity to flip the steak over too. Just to ensure, oh, no, I'm not, so I lost too much pepper. Let's see where the steak's at. No, it's actually pretty much there. Okay, I suppose I could have just pulled it. All right, steak's at 120. So, glad I checked. I could have sworn that was going to be not done. All right, that means that it can rest. Let's see how this is doing. Nice and crisp. Give it with some salt. Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. And now all we have to do is fry our eggs, carve our steak, plate up and serve. And lo and behold, it's dinner time. It's 5:25. I mean, it's not dinner time for New Yorkers, but I'll make an exception because I want to eat this. So this is a cooled off pan, so I can just touch that. Put that over here, just to rest for a sec. Or actually, no, let me put this over here because, sorry, I'm all over the place here. Because now I need to fry the eggs. For that, I need more butter. I just took this butter out of the freezer. And it's really nice to know that you can freeze butter, you know? Just, it's utterly the same. It's one of the few foods I can think of that it goes into and comes out of the freezer unchanged. So, pretty nifty. I'm going to throw some, I don't want to overdo the fat again, so I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of butter. There's those eggs. And what I'm going to try to do is I want to try to fry the eggs specifically on one side of the pan. So that way we end up with like 2 eggs, 2 sunny side up eggs in like a half moon configuration. So that way I could put those on one side of the potato rusty or denfin. And then on the other side can be the steak. And we can have this kind of, you know, yin yang sort of thing. So there's that. Yeah, glad I didn't do more fat than that because that's already plenty. So for sunny side up eggs, I like to crack the eggs beforehand. You don't have to do this, but it can make it a little easier. Just because if you break the yolk and it goes down in the pan, game over. You're not doing a sunny side up egg. Not no more. But if you crack the bowl first, you can make sure you got 2 whole egg yolks before you go to the big shell. All right, here go the eggs. On one side of the pan. Oh, man. I got my 2 eggs here, and look, they're in a nice half moon. That's a good thing. And when they get close to being done, I like nice crispy outsides, edges on my sunny side up, my fried eggs. So I'm gonna get them pretty crispy, and I want most of the whites set. Then I'm gonna turn down the heat, and I'm gonna add just a pinch of water to the pan, maybe if I feel like it. I'm gonna cover it up and mix that around. Make sure it's getting all that good butter. I'm gonna turn down the heat here because the whites are getting mostly set. Shut this down. Get the heat low, and that way the whites can cook through without, you know, ruining the yolks. In the meantime, we can start to plate up. Okay, here we go. And here is our beautiful stuff. Grab my fish spat here. Jiggle these around. Looks like the whites are still not set. So I'm gonna keep that going. Got my giant crispy potato pancake. Potato, palm donfin. I don't know, I give up. I got my steak here. I'm gonna put down the eggs first. Oh, the gremolata, of course. Use a big old spoon, because it's pretty spreadable at this point. So I think instead of sprinkle it, I'm just gonna spread it across the top of the potato pretty thinly. I don't want there to be too much of this stuff. It's pretty bracing and strong. Just gonna kind of paint it on there in a thin, patchy layer, you know? And all right, my whites are set. Yep, whites are set, yolks are still running, perfect. All right, there we go. There's our eggs. Beautiful. This is like a little breakfast plate here. I love this. And now all I have to do is carve the steak and hit it with the sauce. Carefully pull out that string, because if you don't pull it out carefully, it could just rip the that tail right off. Remember, I was talking about how where did I cut it? Oh, there it is. I was talking about how this is a fillet that's been wrapped with the tail, and if you just yank it, could just cut it right in half. Now, where is that section? Just because I want to cut across it if possible. I don't know, let's just go for it. Seems like it's pretty glued together. Oh, whew. All right, it's done properly. Thank goodness. I'm cutting across and on a bias. This cuts across more meat fibers. That way you end up with a tenderer steak. There we go. And I'm just gonna hock a hunk off the back here so it lays down a little more evenly. Just so it looks a little more presentable. There we go. Okay. Perhaps I should just do it like that. Yeah. Can I? Here. I know what I can do. We're doing a little food styling here. By we, I mean me. Sorry, I'm not crazy. I mean, I am crazy, but not in that way. There we go. There we go. Now we're using all the... Oh, just steak and pepper. That's all you need in life. How lovely is that? Right? Oh man. Ooh, that's the shot right there. Look at that. Huh. I'm happy about that. You guys happy about that? Because I'm happy about that. I'm not happy that I didn't roll audio for like 20 minutes, but you live and you learn. There we go. There's our steak à poivre, except it's not quite à poivre yet. First we need the sauce, which is right here and ready to go. And see, the skin, it's really just like, it's not even a skin, it's just the top just gets dark. I don't even know what happens, but it does. So just whisk it up, get it fresh, and let's spoon some over top. Oh, brother. Oh, boy. That is nice. All right. I'm gonna be a good social media dad and take a picture of that because it looks freaking dank. Let's scoot it right in the center. There we go. Right over top. That's, wow, that looks great. Let me turn it so you guys can see. Oh man. Steak and eggs à poivre. Whew. It's done. We did it. Camera didn't melt. The room didn't smoke out. Oh, I'm so proud of myself. I could eat this whole thing, and I'm going to, because I haven't eaten since it's dinner time, so I'm gonna eat this. And we learned some stuff along the way. I think that's, I mean, we'll find out in a second, but I think that sort of batter that worked in the potatoes actually did a great job in both holding it together and keeping it crisp. Way too much fat in the pan for the potatoes. Definitely was able to work around it, but ideally just start with half that. Just use butter, just 2 tablespoons of butter, not 2 tablespoons each, butter and olive oil. Skip the olive oil. And always hit record on the audio recorder. And then that way, I really hope this is still usable. I hope you guys are watching this because that means that it is. And before I sign off, let's dig into this thing, try it, see what it tastes like. I'm gonna hit my eggs with a little bit of salt. And there's a lot of pepper in this recipe. I kind of want to hit it with some sauce. I just didn't want to ruin the aesthetic, but I do want some sauce on the eggs, so I'm just gonna drizzle some on there. And let's see if this is what the doctor ordered for your very sick babby. Not very sick, just currently sick. Let's see. Let's check out the potatoes first. Oop. Yeah, those are crunchy. Those are crunchy. Oh yeah, dude. That worked. That worked rather well. Try some with the gremolata. It's staying crisp too, because it's so nice and thin. Oh man. Game over, dude. We had some stumbles along the way, but I think I've landed on the ultimate expression of steak and eggs. It's fantastic. It's so well balanced. The gremolata, I'll get another bite with the gremolata and the sauce. Yeah. I haven't tried the egg. I know what eggs taste like, but the sauce is so rich, and the beef is rich, and the potatoes are crispy, and everything's all savory and soft and well, savory. And then you got this bright, herbaceous pop in the middle, just reminding you to enjoy life, to stop and smell the roses. And I love it. I love it. Oh man, these potatoes are so crispy. They're a little loosey-goosey towards the edges, but in the middle they stay together. So, try some egg, some yolk in there. Get some actual yolk in there. Good night. Needs nothing. Perfect. Oh, I'm so thrilled with that. I really hope you were able to hear it. Hopefully you guys were able to see and hear what's going on. Hopefully my missteps weren't too confusing. Hopefully this episode isn't too confusing, but wow, it resulted in something truly fantastic. I'm thrilled with this. I'm gonna go eat this entire thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking. Thank you for everything. Thank you for giving me a place in which I can make this show. And thank you for being you. Please leave a shout out in the comments what you want to see me make next. Any thoughts or feedback that you have on this episode, on this format. My eyes and ears are open, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Keep cooking. I will if you will. I'm gonna go eat this. Thanks again to Danish Creamery for sponsoring this episode. If you haven't tried Danish Creamery yet, the extra butter fat is your secret weapon in the kitchen. Have Danish Creamery butter on hand for your cooking and baking projects to add that extra rich, creamy touch to your dish. For more information on Danish Creamery, head to the link in the description or scan the QR code.